There are different stereotypes that you eat, but a black boy from London is not one of them.
Yeah, it's that kind of. Yeah, I think
gay man, all of them.
Yeah,
except one.
Yeah, exactly. Except the main one. Hello and welcome to the Process Podcast. Intro will still never be planned. I don't plan the intro. That's the fun chaos of it. I've got an outro, not an intro. I mean, the intro bit is me doing this, but to not make it too long, I'm going to start introing the guest now, as my guest for today's Process Podcast is the one and only Jake Nathan.
Hello.
This is pause for applause that I will never add in post, but still pause for applause here. How are you doing today?
Yeah, all right. I was a bit slow today. You know when you wake up and you're just like, you've not got the energy that you thought you was going to have. Yeah. So I apologise for pushing this back an hour and then getting stuck in traffic. But
You're fine.
Yeah, I'm feeling all right. How are you?
I'm not too bad. I am, as I was saying off camera, level of this is my week off and trying to balance that level of, Tyrone can rest now, but also Tyrone can catch up on all the multi-projects he's doing, etc. Whilst also apparently looking after a house, because sometimes you need to have time to actually clean and do your house shit.
Yeah, grown-up stuff just gets in the way of life, doesn't it?
I don't do grown-up stuff. I'm again, as we look around my house off camera, you can see all of the toys I have bought of late, etc. No, this is not all about me. We're going to be about you here. Though I'm saying it's not about me. The first question I'm going to ask, as I ask all my guests, is where did we first meet?
First time I met you was in Canterbury. I was doing a slam that Henry Madicott was running. I can't remember what it was called now, but you were the headliner.
Yes.
And I specifically signed up because you were the headliner. And I was like, I've wanted to see Tyrone Lewis for ages. I'm going to go and do this slam. And we met there and we actually had quite a nice chat. And then I came down to Process like a few months later and then started seeing you more regularly.
Weird, because I think at that slam, I feel like we ended up going to a bar beforehand and bought a randomer from whatever bar we were at to the slam.
Yeah, I think I remember that. I think I turned up at the beginning and you'd already been out with a couple of poets for a while.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because my go-to thing whenever I'm doing like gigs out of London, etc., because I'm obviously getting the train up there, I will tend to book the day off work or whatever. And so for like Canterbury, it's like, I've been in Canterbury since 2:00. I have had to kill time here. I always go for the thing of like, I'm going to explore the city. Then I get there and it's like, I don't actually ever care about exploring a city. I just need to find a pub and sit down.
Yeah. Canterbury's cool, but I think you walk down a couple of streets and you're like, oh, this is nice. Then find a pub.
Or always that thing of like, oh, there's some nice shops here. I've also got nice shops at home. If I was going to buy stuff, I would have bought it already, kind of thing.
Yeah. There's not. I mean, Canterbury's cool, but unless you're looking at old buildings, that's pretty much it.
I feel like I actually bumped into a photographer there, and like we got into chatting about photography stuff, and we shared. Like, he had a Fuji cam when I had a Fuji at the time, and we ended up like, oh, this is fun for pictures. I'm like, that is what Canterbury's vibe is. I feel. Well, like for you then, how was it in Canterbury, the whole like poetry scene there, especially compared to like, we might go into this later, but like the difference between the poetry scene there compared to here?
Well, when I started doing poetry, I was living in Rochester in Kent, so I got involved in the Kent scene and very quickly learned there was quite a lot going on in Canterbury. So I never lived in Canterbury, but I was like there doing poetry quite a lot. And it was really good for me when I was starting off, really welcoming scene. I think everybody sort of gets burnt out of Canterbury pretty quickly from what you hear and from my own experience. But yeah, it was very good for me starting out, and I've got a couple of friends that like have become good friends that's come out of that. Tommy Carver Chaplin particularly, he booked me for my first ever paid gig, but we're really good friends still and chat regularly. So Canterbury was all right, but it's I've got a bit burnt out of there. Don't go back any much.
Fair play. Well, going into this properly now, we're going to go into our timeline section where we'll go into your past, present, and future as a creative. I like to say it as a creative because obviously so many of us who are poets obviously have so many other fingers in other pies, etc. Obviously, you got the music stuff you're doing as well, etc. So, with our timeline section. How did you kind of get into all of the creative stuff, whether it be music or poetry and writing, etc.?
I always liked creative things. I was always into music. My house was a very musical household. Also, there was a lot a lot of reading encouraged. Me and my brother and sister were all like proper readers when we were younger. We were reading at like secondary school level in primary school and all this stuff. So there was always words around. There was always music. We like watched loads of films. So there was like creative stuff was always around me, but I didn't really realize how creative I was until much later in life. I used to write raps, listening and like grime 16s and stuff like that. Growing up in East London, like grime was a big thing. And I started doing that, but not really seriously in any way. And then I sort of, when I was about early 20s, maybe, early to mid 20s, stumbled across Def Poetry Jam on YouTube just by searching for Common, and ended up seeing his and then looking at others and downloading the whole lot and watching it all the way through. And I was like, oh, this is something I can do. Like, I love grime and rap, but that, like, the stuff that I listen to is not really my personality in terms of what I would make. So I heard that and started thinking that's something I can do. I can start branching out and experimenting, doing different things. And then wrote for years and years, shared it with about 3 or 4 people who said, oh, you should do more of this. And I'm like, yeah, cool. Yeah, maybe. And then when my son was born, my first son, I was like, oh, like, I have to do something with this. I can't, like, when he grows up and says, Dad, this is what I really love doing, I can't say, like, well, let's chase after it if I've never done anything with it. So I did my first poetry open mic at 30 in Rochester. And actually, no, it wasn't a poetry open mic. It was just an open mic at a bar that I knew the owner of. And I messaged her and said, can I come down and do poetry? Do you have poetry? And she said, yeah, absolutely, come down. And it turns out I was like the second poet ever. They don't really have poetry, but there happened to be another poet there called Barry Fentman Hall, who, if I remember rightly, said he was only there because his wife was out and he got a free beer if he performed.
Fair play.
But he saw me perform, come and spoke to me and invited me to come and do his poetry night, which was my official first poetry night, I think. And then from there I met other people and ended up getting all over the place, because it turns out poetry is really inclusive, even though when you're about to get into it, you feel like you're going to turn up and people are going to go away, you're rapping.
Oh, it's one of those things where you kind of don't realise how big poetry is until you're in the scene, etc. Yeah. But like, it's also refreshing, at least for me, to hear that like it wasn't Button poetry. Like, nothing against Button, but like so many go for it through that way. And I do remember growing up, like I was into poetry beforehand, but yeah, no, I watched the Def Poetry stuff, and they were like, that was the stuff that kind of like got me into like, oh no, I like this. This was my style kind of thing.
Yeah, for sure. It's like, I did poetry in school and I liked poetry. But in school, you don't learn like modern poetry really. Like, you do half cast, and that's about as modern as it gets. As good as that poem is. But found Def Poetry Jam, found like various people. Saul Williams. I was like, oh my god, what is this? And it's just, and Mum's a schemer as well. Who, like, my style isn't really like his at all, but I found him fascinating. He was definitely one of the people who made me go like, okay, I want to do this.
No, I think like growing up, Jacob Samuel Rose was the guy that taught me poetry starting off, and like one of the poets he got me on to really early on, given my voice and styling, was a poet by the name of Taylor Marley. And like Taylor Marley's done a couple of like Def Poetry stuff, and he was like a teacher as well.
Yeah,
and it was the thing of like, okay, no, like I see that, and like I think that's always really nice of like finding the right voices to match your style, because like not everyone's going to be a Button poet, not everyone's going to be an outspoken poet, or going more UK based, etc. So like. I think it's nice to make sure that you find your pockets with stuff. So like, especially looking at present day Jake, what are you doing with your poetry and your creative stuff? Where are you at the moment, I guess?
I feel like I'm at the beginning of phase 2. When I started doing poetry, I had things that, like, if things go really well, I would like to have achieved this. So I went through, like, I started in Kent and I started getting headline gigs in Kent. And then I moved closer to London and was like, okay, I want to get out in London. Started getting headline gigs in London, getting like, I don't know, a bit of recognition about the place, and getting some followers up. And then I always wanted to do winning slams. I won my first slam in Kent at Utterance, which is Alex Gretton's night. And then I came to London and I won Genesis and I won Hammer and Tongue Hackney within a couple of months of each other. And I was like, oh, this is like, I wanted to, kind of sounds like what they said to me. I've won 2 slams in my life, but in my bio it says multiple time slam winner. So that was my aim, was to get 2 slam wins, and then I had 3 and I was in the 2 finals. And then Hackney, Hammer and Tongue Hackney final, actually, there was something off about it for me that night that really put me off for a while. And leading up to Genesis, I was really anxious about it, having a panic attack for like a week. And it wasn't until I was driving to Genesis that I was like, I need to not care. I need to just not care what happens tonight. I'm going to do a poem that I want to do, not one that I'm trying to win with. I'll go out in the first round and I'll watch everyone else. Like that was what I was doing. And that's the only way I could cope with walking into that cinema. But then all of a sudden, like the chillness just like spread through me, having decided to do that. And I did my first poem and I got through and I was like, oh, cool. What poem should I do next? And then I got through the second round. I was like, oh, I'm in the final. And then I was sitting there thinking, right, which one's going to win it for me? And I was like, no, stop that. That's the energy that was like causing you so much anxiety. Do another one that you want to do. So I read in the final round. I was like, fuck this, I'm not even doing one. I remember off by heart. I'm reading one. And ended up winning it. And but like just felt this giant amount of relief. And then afterwards, like I've achieved everything that I wanted to achieve when I set out in poetry. Like I'm 3 years in, and like this is the level that I was like, oh my God, if I get to that level, that would be amazing. And then had a bit of like what do I do next? Do I carry on? Do I just keep doing open mics and do this stuff? But then recently I've realised that there's been a real focus on what I've been writing about the last couple of years in terms of like growing up as a boy and misogyny and patriarchy and unlearning all these different things. And I was like, actually, I've been writing a lot about this, my music and my poetry. Maybe it's time for me to start thinking about writing a collection. And so that's like my focus at the moment. I'm writing a collection. I don't know if it's going to be a full collection or if it's going to be like a pamphlet. Haven't really decided yet. I'm also going to try and do like a stage show to take to festivals and stuff. And it just feels like it's time for me to kick on and like do this properly rather than being like, oh yeah, I do a bit of poetry. Like I want to make something of this.
No, nice. I mean, I think a lot of my vibe when I was starting was, I mean, especially because I started so young and doing this, there was a vibe of like, I don't even know what to even think. I had like, slams were not as commonplace as they are now, etc. So I didn't have the person who's like, oh, well, you've won a couple of slams. Like at most I had like, not that I knew them well, but like there was like K Tempest who'd just done a couple of like BBC, I think like BBC kind of 4, or BBC 4 stuff, etc. And like had a couple of like, oh, Poach had a little bit of exposure, etc. There was a phase when there was like the Channel 4 random act stuff that had went to like freaking Banks at the Gun, etc. So it's like it was getting like little bits of exposure there, but like for the most part, it was like, I'm just gonna, you offer me a thing, I will probably say yes and kind of thing, and just that vibe. And I think that's always a good way to go with poetry. Obviously, now even the short time that people have been doing it, especially spoken word. Well, spoken word's been going for a long time, but in the short time, it's been a bit more mainstream, etc. There's been even more platforms for you look at fucking words, life and rhymes, for that, etc. So it's the thing. Oh, well, keeping it open to everything, but it also sounds like you've got like cool. Now there's almost like a checklist of like, here's the bucket list of what I want to do. So like, obviously you would touch them a little bit. So going into a bit more, what is the proper checklist of what you want to do? Is there an end goal, or is it just here's next, and then we'll figure out after that?
I didn't have an end goal to start. Like very much at the beginning, it was like if I can get to this level, then I'll be delighted with that. That's like if I can get paid to do poetry in London, that will be amazing.
And just for clarity, paid full time or just a little bit of money coming?
Just 50 quid to come and do a headline set was the big goal really. The goal now is doing so much different creative stuff to hopefully be able to make a living just doing creative stuff. That is the goal that I'm aiming for. But as we know, that's not an easy thing to do. But I've got a lot of different avenues that I will hopefully be able to use to do that. I do illustration and art, I do graphic design, I do music. I'm hoping that between all these things that I'll be able to do that. I'm just like trying to get into sort of a bit of workshop running and stuff like that as well with my friend Aaron Shrimpton. We've just won a contract to run a poetry summer school for working class kids in Basildon. So like I really want to get in working with working class kids, people who grew up in the same way that I did, who didn't know that there was all this stuff that you could do, because when you're a working class kid at school, it's like, what results are you going to get? What job are you going to do afterwards? And nobody really says to you, you can do other things. There's so many creative things that you can do. So I guess, to try and make a living, to help working class kids get into more creative stuff and use their creativity are the the two main goals that I have. The putting out a book. I love the idea of it. I'm a bit conflicted about it though, because I feel like I'm better. My poetry is better heard when I'm performing it than when it's written down. But I heard a few people recently say to me, like, I really want to read your writing. So I think there is a space for it. But I feel like to justify it in my head, I might have to do a thing where like there's a QR code in the book. And if you scan this QR code, you can go to recordings of me performing it as well.
I mean, like, you obviously you look at people like Laurie, for example. Admittedly, he does it in a more retro way, but you have the book, but then also the cassette tape you can get. Here's a different version. I know, like, back in the day, Sarah Hirsch had a CD player. Like, here's the recordings of it as well.
Yeah.
Like, I think, like, I always like to think of the book as like a different medium of it kind of thing, and like that was always the challenge, but the fun part of doing the books in the here is the thing I've said out loud, and I'd like to think I've played around with performance enough to have fun there. Can I find a different way to have fun in a book? And like, not that it's a different poem, but almost like, here is the stage version, here's the book version. The same way you'll have almost the album version and the single version of songs, etc. Almost kind of thing, or like the live version versus the version you play on the album, etc. I think is how I'm almost viewing some of the book versus performing stuff sometimes.
Yeah, I like the idea of like when I put out songs and stuff, or like even put poems on Instagram, and people come to me. I've not done any explanation. Might just put the words, might put a performance, and they come and they say, "Oh, is this about this?" And it's not what it's about. But I love that that's what they've taken from it. And I feel like with a book, is people are going to read things not knowing anything. I mean, I'm pretty on the nose with my poetry. It's not like I'm particularly abstract, but like they can read their own things into it and decide what it is for themselves, instead of having me being like performing it in a certain way that's going to make you think this.
The whole thing of like, when I was in school, I was always getting annoyed at how deep would go into poems, and like the author did not mean that in the poem, etc. But at the same time, that thing of like the amount of poems I've heard or read, and kind of I've thought one thing and it's like, oh no, it literally was just the red bucket kind of thing. I was thinking, oh, this is some deep meta. No, it's literally just a red bucket. And I picked like, why red? Because it literally was, or just I like the color red kind of thing. It's like, oh no, cool. So, like, I do sometimes make it deeper than it is, and vice versa. And like, it is fun to play around with that. I guess with that, then it's like for you, like, it sounds like most of your stuff has been still relatively new in this. So like, have you had many people like performing your poems, for example? Like, I was growing up and was lucky enough in workshops to have like, cool, you write a poem and then someone else in the thing would read it out loud, and so you can hear someone else say it. Have you had that happen much of your poetry yet? Not
much, a little bit. In lockdown, Connor Sainsbury had a thing called Winchester Fest. And we all had like different shows on it. And someone did a show where it was like, bring your favourite poet's work and read your favourite poets. And I had someone ask me for one of my poems so they could read it, and hearing my words in somebody else's mouth was a bit like, oh, like it's like it's not that they're doing it wrong, they're doing it differently to me. And that was interesting, but I've not had that too much. M. Hunter sometimes quotes my lines back at me. But yeah, that's about it really.
No, because I always think I will always say it's a valuable thing for poets just to hear it, because like, again, it's the whole thing of like, these are the words we're using, and it's amusing how the words sound different out of someone else's mouth, even if it's just the speed they do it and things. Like, oh, that changes the poem a little bit. Like, I've had poems that even just me doing them differently, it was a serious poem when I wrote it down, and I've changed the tempo a little bit, and now it's funny, a funny poem. It's like, that was about my breakup and that was serious, but actually no, if I read it that way, no, there is humor in this kind of thing.
Yeah, I like that sometimes you write stuff and you finish writing it, and you've been focusing on it and you've tried really hard, and you get to the end of it, and then you listen. Like, I listened to a recording of myself. I did it with a song that I wrote recently. Listened back to it, and I was like, I just realised what this is about. I was writing it, and I knew what I was writing, but I didn't know what I was writing about until I heard it back. And it's like, this is about me growing up being neurodivergent, and it's like I must have subconsciously known that was what it was, but I didn't realise it at the time.
That's obviously that idea of like, so much of poetry and the spoken word that we do is we are the ones performing it, so we've got so much ownership of it. And not that you're relinquishing ownership, but you're giving it out there a bit differently, etc. And like, obviously, well, I'm assuming obviously with the music, because obviously you are not performing that music live every single time people are listening to it, that seems to be more comfortable to kind of relinquish that too. So like, what is the difference for you in terms of the music and the poetry and sharing that?
I've not shared that much music yet. I put a bit out when I was working with somebody just before lockdown and over lockdown a bit. But putting that out was the first time that I realized that once you release something into the world, it isn't yours anymore. Like when you're creating it, it's yours, and you're coddling it and you're making it exactly what you want it to be. But as soon as you go, all right, anyone can listen to this, it's theirs now, and it's whatever they want it to be and whatever they think it is to them. Which sort of took a little bit of getting my head around, but I really like it. I like the idea that I might have like spent a long time trying to craft this into what I want it to be, but now it's whatever you want it to be, and that's pretty cool. With poetry, I don't know that I felt the same sort of way as I did with music, where like this is what it is. And I think with poetry, it's always like I said, I'm pretty on the nose with my stuff. I'm not out writing like abstract things, but like it is whatever people hear, and what the bits that they like of it is what's for them. So yeah, so it works really well, I think, in like just letting go. This is what it is. And like the funnily, when I was headlining Process, at that point when I was used to doing like an open mic slot, but if I got a headline slot, the panic set in. And it was like, listen, I'm going to get found out tonight. They're going to realize I'm not good enough for this. The imposter syndrome would kick in really heavily, and I'd spend the whole day like, what am I going to do? This is the night I get found out. No one's coming. No one cares about me. No one's going to like it. And I realized that I could get past that. But I hadn't released my EP yet, but I'd recorded some of it, and I played some of my poems to myself in my car and pretended it was other people saying them, and was able to go, no, actually, that's all right. If I heard that, I'd be like, yeah, that's good. And like managed to get myself confident enough to be like, okay, I can perform here. I can get through this. Even if I wasn't convinced still that like I was as good as I needed to be. It's like, oh no, I can fake my way through this. People hear this and be like, oh no, it's good. And I'd be like, yeah, thank God I've got through it.
I mean, the secret to all this level of, it has been 18 plus years of me doing this, and a level of like, don't fucking know what I'm doing, still fucking faking my way through all of this stuff, a level of like, call you off, like, what will become, well, probably, I don't know times when this is coming out, etc. By the time you listen to this, I'll probably have had an article in Magma Poetry's thing, and a level of like, I don't know what the fuck I'm not talking anything serious in that. Like, was someone from Magma happened to be in the same room as me at the right time, and it's like, cool, you've asked me to do a thing, I've said an answer, I've said it now.
Yeah.
That's now my answer, apparently. That's apparently now what I'm believing here.
Yeah.
I don't know what the fuck I'm doing.
I don't think anybody does. I think we're all faking. Anyone that says like, oh no, I'm for sure, I think is pretending, or it probably isn't very good and haven't figured stuff out. Because like, even like becoming a parent and realizing, oh, my parents didn't know anything. They were winging it the whole time. And to me, they knew everything. They had all the answers that I needed, but they had no idea what they were doing. It's like, it's a weird adult thing of growing up and being like, no, nobody knows. Everyone's faking it. Some people are just better at faking it.
For sure, like the whole idea of like, this again, it's why I don't really have many things on like a checklist of what I want to do, and that thing of like, I don't know what's going to come like with this thing, a level like the fact that spoken word theatre stuff is, for example, is much more prominent now. It's a thing of like, I didn't even know that was an option when I was starting, kind of thing, let alone one that could work. And then you look at things like, I look at someone like Jack Rook, for example, who has done comedy in the past, also was a Roundhouse poet back in the day. Now he is a writer for Big Boys on Channel 4, which is amazing. And it's the thing of like, oh, so that's a pathway that's also a possibility as well, etc. And it's like, oh, there's so many options, so let's all just fucking figure it out.
Yeah, and that's, I think, like, the idea of me writing a book is probably because I think that's what poets are supposed to do. But I also, like, having said, I think my poetry is better out loud, the idea of doing it like a stage show and taking it places was something that I hadn't really considered until I saw that, like, oh, a couple of other people have done it. And I met Annalise Broughton, who comes from like an acting background. And she's like, well, let's do something together. Let's write a show and we'll take it to festivals. And like, that's all abstract to me. And I was like, yeah, cool, we'll do that. And then she'll message me like, oh, look, these guys are putting a call out. Should we apply? And I was like, and in my head, I'm like, whoa, I didn't realize like it was that sort of simple that you just say to people, here's some, like, can I come perform? But yeah, I really like the idea of doing that. And we're going to, we found a space at Metal in Southend where We recently held Words in Chalk. They will host. They've got 2 bedrooms there, and they will host you for a week to do some writing if you can make contact with them and stuff. So we're going to go and do that. We're going to go and live in this place for a week and try and bang out a show, and then take it places and try and do things with it.
Nice. Well, on that, I think I'll end the future section there, as we'll now move on to my fun in-depth. It's not in-depth. It's never in-depth. We're going on tangents. Nevertheless, we can pretend it's the fun in-depth section known as Let's Talk About. So I think a good one to talk about, which I surprisingly don't think I've actually properly done on the podcast yet, is the idea. Obviously, I know it's technically a podcast for any kind of creatives, but it's a poetry podcast. We know this. But looking at the idea, I think to start off with, looking at the idea of going from open micer to feature, how is that transition? How does that, whether it's like what you have to do as a poet to do that, how it feels, especially obviously the thing of like, it's not like, and jumping the gun a little bit, but it's also not like the idea that like, oh, I've done a headline here, I must only do headliners and no open mics in the future kind of thing. So like, how is that transition going from just walking up these open mics and just performing, etc., to then like, oh, now I want to do a feature, and now I am doing features, and how does it feel and all that?
I think I got offered a feature set before I even thought about it being a possibility. And it wasn't a long one, but I'd done 4 or 5 open mics, I think, and I met Tommy Carver Chaplin I talked about earlier, and I think I reached out to him because he had a slam in Canterbury, and I said, it was my first ever slam, can I come and do your slam? What are the rules? What do I have to do? Did that, and then he went, actually, I was thinking about this, I'm booking for Radish Rhymes, and I wanted you to come down and do like a 10-minute set. And I was a bit like, oh, fuck, have I got 10 minutes worth of hearing? Like, and so it's definitely a lot of imposter syndrome, definitely like a shock, because I was just like seeing how poetry would go rather than thinking this is what I want to do in poetry. So yeah, a definite shock and a definite imposter syndrome, but fun as well. Like, it's like an encouragement, like, oh, so I'm all right at this. People want to see me, like someone's willing to pay me some money to come and do something. And yeah, it's like a confidence boost, I guess, like letting me know you can do this, which is cool. And then it moved on to like headline sets after that. And again, imposter syndrome. I'm not really ready for this, but they want me to do it, so I'll do it. But having people believe in you as well gives you the like kick on to do the next thing, and sort of gain more confidence at each step. And I don't think there's any trick to it really, other than like working on your craft and being good at what you're doing. I think I was fortunate to come in to poetry having written for 10 years, but not been confident enough to perform it. So I had all that time of improving my writing. So when I came in, I was already like pretty good. People were saying, I can't believe you just started. It's like, technically I've just started performing, but I've been writing for years and years. So I've not really just started. But I think, yeah, it's just about getting better. I remember being at my first Rhymes and Stitches, and someone on the open mic came up to me and said, like, I'm only just started, how do I go about getting features and stuff like that? My only advice to them was to just get around to open mics, let people see you perform, because if you're good enough, they'll book you. And that ended up being true of that night. She'd done really well. She's a comic and a poet, Kavita, her name is. But like, we had that conversation, and Liv had already just watched her and written down a notebook, book Kavita, because she headlined a couple of shows later. But yeah, I think it's about being good. Like, work on your craft and make sure that you're trying to be a good poet, that you're like, I don't know, you feel like you've almost got to learn the rules before you can break them, because a lot of people can't come in and like try and do all this stuff straight away. But I'm like, just like work on your writing, get good at it. Once you know how to do everything, then you can decide which rules you want to break. I heard that on an artist podcast, I think, and it really resonated with me.
Nice. like with that whole imposter syndrome side of things, then like what was it like kind of you were feel like imposter? Was it imposter about the level of writing? Was it imposter about like how long you've been on the scene? What was going into that for you?
Probably both. Probably feeling like, oh, I've only just started this. You don't realize I'm not good enough yet. And at the same time being like, oh, I know I've been writing for years, but I've only been performing it for a little while. You've only heard like a few of my bits. You don't know if I'm at that level. But the good thing about poets is that when they see someone that they see potential in, they support them massively. From what I've experienced, like people see you perform, and I get it now because I can see someone perform the first poem and be like, you need to carry on doing this. Like you're gonna be really good at this, whether you think you are now or not. Like you've started really good, and you're gonna get better. So I think like the other people believing in you really helps the imposter syndrome, even though everybody still has the imposter syndrome. Nobody's out there going, I'm fucking great at this. Look how good I am.
No, but like with that though, like especially now that especially with you kind of like running a night as well, but also going to other nights and like seeing other features, like what is it about a feature that's like, oh, this person is a feature versus this is an open micer? Obviously, no, it's not as simple as that, but what would you say is that difference of like, oh yeah, this person, like what makes, whether it's a level of, if you see a feature and go, wait, Tyrone, too many questions at once. I do this so often. Keep it simple for now. It's a podcast. We can talk for a while. Cool. What is it about seeing a feature that you kind of go, oh, no, this is a good feature?
That they're making me feel something, that I get caught up in what they're saying rather than just sitting there watching them. Because I think when someone's good, they take you on a bit of a journey. So you start off, you're just like sitting there, okay, and like, let me see what you like, what do you do? And then they start talking, and you almost forget that you're sitting in a room full of strangers watching someone speak on stage.
Just to quickly interrogate that one, that's the level of like them doing a couple of poems that takes you on a journey versus just like, oh, this one poem is taking me on a journey.
It depends, because like you get people sometimes when you go to an open mic, someone gets up and does one poem, and you realise, oh, I got a bit lost in that. That was really good, and that makes you think, I'd like to see them for longer. I think when you're watching someone on an open mic, if they finish and you think, fuck, I want to see 15 more minutes of that like you're a feature. I want to book you now. There are other people that you see and you're like, you were great. I'd like to see you again, but like, I want to see how you develop. Like you're very good for where you are and where you come from, and like let me see the next thing that you do. So I think that we all like, you develop that sense as a poet if you're really trying to get better and like focusing on seeing people who are very good. What is it that they do that I like about them? How can I make that work for me? And things like that. And you start seeing that in other people, and you can see the people who are doing that, and who some people have certain things naturally, and you're just like, yeah, I want to see loads more of you. And other people, you see them develop over time. And that's like more rewarding, I think, when you see someone and they're starting and like you see the potential in them and you see where they can get to, and then you gradually see them working towards that, and you're like, yeah, I love that. So yeah, some people it's just, you can see it and you're like, okay, take me on a journey. And some people you see the progress, and then they get to a point where you're like, oh my God, yeah, you're ready. I want to put you in. I want to put you headline and show you off to people. And I think that's the way that I book headline, is just like, oh, I want more people to see how good you are. That's if I look at you and think, oh, more people should see you. More people should know about what you do. Then I'm probably gonna book you.
No, I think that's nice. Like, I am very aware over the years, I feel like I've definitely gravitated towards the idea of stage presence being a thing that I will not necessarily book someone just because of that, but I will look for that. Like, I think the fastest I've ever booked someone was literally the second process we did? Yeah, probably was the second process we did. Might have been the third. Early in process, we booked Ra Pefferbridge, and I'd seen Ra only once before at L. Dylan Ream's book launch, and just the way Ra worked the room, etc., and like the way the poems linked together, and like this level of, oh, you know what you're doing kind of thing. And like, yeah. Ra was like relatively new to spoken word, but just level of like, oh, you are good on the stage. And I definitely know that the way I tend to book stuff nowadays, especially because we had our past tense now had the space of Rule Zero. Oh, sad times. We had that space which felt very stagey with the lighting, etc. It felt me like I want to put on a show here, so definitely stage presence came into it. But obviously, not all spaces have that. Not all things go for that. So, like for you, how much does like stage presence and that kind of that level of awe, I suppose, come into booking features? Because obviously, you get some poets that like the words are incredible, might not always be the best performer, but the words are incredible. So, like, how important is the way you perform on stage versus the words, etc.? Does it fluctuate or whatnot?
I think that is like when I talk about watching a poet develop. I think that stage presence is one of those things that usually develops in someone, and you get better over time. I've definitely seen it myself, and actually like, trying to be better by seeing people who get up on stage and you're just like, whoa, you're not just standing saying words, like, and it almost doesn't even feel like they're performing; they're just like drawing you in. So I think that like stage presence is a great thing, and definitely an important tool in poetry. But I also think there's different kinds of stage presence. Like I think some people are just sort of gentler and quieter, and that doesn't mean that you don't have stage presence. Some people just are almost anti-performers, and you like that about them. And then there are other people who get on stage and they're just a force of nature, and you're like, yes, I'm in. So I think the stage presence is important, but I think the thing that makes stage presence good is if it's you, if you look natural doing it. If you're going up there to project stage presence and like, okay, I'm going to go and project like this is what I want to be, this, and you're not it, you can tell. Whereas like you can go out there and be super chilled and not overly energetic, but still have stage presence because that's what you are, that's your character, and you draw people in rather than forcing it on them. And I think that's the art of stage presence, is making people come to you where you are and letting them see you for you.
And now, like, going into the weeds of like making a feature set itself a level, like how do you craft your feature sets? I'm gonna first start as focus on like thinking of the poems. Like, do you come at it with like, here is the story I want to tell, or just some level of like, well, people have seen me perform these poems and these are my best poems, so I must perform those ones. How much does that come in? How do you craft the poems in the set with that as well, on that, like adding in new poems or poems you've not done before? Do you add those to feature sets, especially when like, oh, I'm being paid now, but I've got a poem that I haven't tried out yet? Do you save that for an open mic? Do you put it in a feature set? And yeah.
I think brand new stuff I'm not going to put straight in a feature set, but the way that I think about feature sets has just recently changed. I think in saying like I've been in phase one, I'm moving into phase two. I think phase one feature sets from Jake Nathan was, here's all my best poems. Like, please like me. I'm good enough. I promise you. Look at these. And I've just hit the point where I'm like, actually, I want to take you on a journey. And I'm starting to craft my feature set and be like, so I've had a real focus on the things that I've been writing about recently, and that wasn't intentional. I've just sort of realized it, but it does mean that I've now got a story to tell. I can start you here, take you through things, and you still get to put the bangers in, like, because you've been performing them for a while. But I do now have like a sort of crafted set that I want to tell a story. I think because I'm starting to think about it more, like thinking about writing a book, thinking about doing a show, and I sort of. When I did Words in Chalk, which is like 3 weeks ago, was my first time I felt like I've properly crafted a set and I've nailed it. Like, I took people on a journey, and people like came up and said that to me without me saying like, oh, I want to take you on a journey. Like, without me referencing them coming up and saying, oh, I just felt like you took me places, and I was like, yes, like it's working. This is the next level of poetry for me. This is Jake Nathan going from, oh, he's a good poet, to like, oh, he's a proper poet, almost. Like, this is him taking us on a journey, and that's what I want to do. I want to, like, there's definitely art in writing poetry, but I think like I want to create themes and create stories and weave things, and I think that's the next step for me.
Well, like in these creating sets and like creating this kind of theme thing for you, obviously each night has a different vibe and different feeling, etc. So do you think you'd ever kind of like, I won't say be swayed by the audience, but a level of like, in my mind, I'm doing this thing. I want to talk about this. You get to the night and it's like, oh, the crowd has a different feeling or different energy, etc. And maybe this theme or this poem doesn't work. Like, how much are you open to like changing depending on the audience, etc.? Does the audience play a factor? Does the night you're going to go, oh well, this night probably caters towards this stuff. So as much as I'm doing the theme, oh, they're more wordplay focused, so I'll do the wordplay poem. Still a theme, but does that play a factor?
For open mics, very much. And these days I don't go, I go to an open mic thinking, usually with something I've written recently, and think I'm probably going to do this. But if I get there and there is like a certain kind of poem that's doing really well, and I think, oh, I got one that fits that really well, they're really going to like this, I'll change and I'll do a different poem. For a set, I'm pretty decided, I think, but I will make changes. I haven't decided 100% on what I'm doing until like half an hour before probably. And I can move stuff about, bring stuff in, different things. But like generally, if you've been booked for a night, you've been there before. Maybe not for you because you can get booked at other places, but like you can sort of read the vibe, and I will cater my set to the vibe of the night if I know about it in advance and what the sort of things that they like. I think if I were going to go to a brand new audience, like I've been booked for a place and I've never been there before, I'm probably going to go try and put more bangers in. Not that like all poems aren't like good in their own way, but like ones that are like big impact effect poems.
I get you. See, I am the chaotic other end of the spectrum. I don't plan sets. So here's the thing. So I both don't plan sets, but I also do. And as much as the amount of times I will, especially like in that like half hour when the doors are open before the night actually starts, I will try and actually sit down and kind of go, let's actually try and plan it out timing wise. What poems am I actually doing? If it's a 15-minute set, make sure which poems are going to fit 15 minutes, etc. And then I will get to the actual mic and go, I'm not feeling that one now. I've changed my mind now. Like at least the level of like, I will try and factor in obviously how long a set is, because that's a big part. But yeah, no, I'm a bit chaotic in that I think, so in the chaotic and other end of the spectrum thing, when I went to go do the Kent Poetry Slam Championship, one, I wrote a poem I wrote in the Weatherspoons beforehand.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
There's new shit there. And then two, I do feel like I actually started introing a poem, and then in the intro chose to do a different poem. I think I legitimately did that.
I remember.
But on that, then like, how much of your planning of your sets also goes into like planning the intros and link between poems? Because I personally, I think they are such a big part of poetry feature sets that people often neglect.
Yeah.
Like, how much does that factor into you? How much is that planned, rehearsed? And like, is that a level of I've planned the set and it's there, or a level of this poem has this intro?
I think that's something that I've just started working on. I think early on I didn't think about it. I had certain poems that like when I get up at an open mic, I've got an intro that I do that works with them, or like that just feels like this explains it really well. And I did that once and I thought, oh, I'll do that again. But with my sets, it would just be like that intro, and I might sometimes finish a poem and be like, okay, so like this is the next, just go straight into it and not have that. But I've seen a few poets recently who like have done that feature set and it's been like a conversation, and just thought that's exactly what I want to do. So I really tried to improve on that recently, and it's something I've just started thinking about. I think because I think that is something that takes your performance to the next level. Going from someone who are like, they're a good performer, they do good poetry, but like then to go from that to being like, you've got everyone in the palm of your hands the entire way through. You're talking and like it feels natural, and you just even like slip into a poem and without realizing it. I think that's really important. And like you were saying again as well, like the timing of a set. I got really arty in like talking about how I want to craft and set, but it is very much like I've got this amount of time. If I've got a 20-minute set, that means I've got about 16 minutes worth of poetry, and like break it down like that. I have to put time in for applause. I have to put time in to do a little bit of talk between the things. And like starting to craft that story, I've realized that the intros or the just in between bits are very, very important. When I first started, I remember like the first thing that I ever had, like in the first set that I got paid for, I was like, everyone else is good at talking when they got on the mic. So I was like, I'll get up a bit at the beginning and be like, just let people know, like, just to let you know, I'm not as good as like talking between the poems as everyone else is. Like, I'm brand new to this, so if that bit's shit, I'm really sorry. And I just make a joke out of it, and people laugh, and then you carry on. But it's definitely something that I'm trying to work on to take myself to the next level for it.
It's one of the things, again, in the peek behind the curtain side of things, like at a process gig, especially when I know I'm going to have to go up next, there's some level of like, not what is the joke I'm saying next, but what am I saying next? What is the thing I'm going to be doing here? Like, whether it's hosting, whether it's an open mic, whether it's featuring, it's always level of like, my favorite thing about live performance stuff is stuff that can only exist in the room you're in.
Yeah.
And with that, it is a level of acknowledging the poets that come before you, the people in the room, etc., and all of that. And like, I'm in this space, we're all in this today, on this very date, we're all here for this one time, and part of the joy of this is being here in that one space. So I will always try to bring some of that into it, because the thing of like, look, I'm aware, I'm paying attention. Like, I think one of the what I keep saying I'm going to name people in this podcast, and I haven't as much, but like, one of the worst feature sets I've seen, and to clarify this for extra context, the quality of poetry was good. The quality of the performance was good. It was also one of the worst features that I've ever seen, because it was a Luke Wright feature set. Luke Wright is an incredible poet who's done so much work in the poetry scene and theatre scene, all that kind of stuff. Incredible in that sense. And I fully get why he did this, but I saw him like twice in the same week because there were 2 events he was featuring at. I think like word for word, the exact same poems, the exact same in-betweens at each set.
Yeah.
And it just felt, to me, as someone who's watched both of them, so fake and disingenuous.
Yeah.
I obviously understand, with some, especially the caliber that Luke is and the amount of gigs he has to do, etc. That's just how Luke gets through gigs, some level of like almost an acting thing of, I've rehearsed this script, I'm going to perform this script and do that. More power to you. I just didn't vibe with that at all. And like, it was kind of almost reinforced that thing of like, I want to be in the room and acknowledge the room every single time. Like, I think Harry Baker's really incredible at doing that. He will always, and again, the battle rapness of him, the fact that he can do rap based on what people say in the room. I think he's very good at being present in the room when he does gigs, even if some of it is doing a bit, which I've seen him do the bit before. It will be different each time because he's in the room, etc.
Yeah.
So like, I think those will always take it to the next level. So like, with that, like, looking at you in phase 2 now, whatever, like, what are you looking to improve on, work on going forward with your features and all that kind of stuff?
Definitely like making it a coherent set, making it feel like one thing rather than I'm doing this poem, then I'm doing this poem, then I'm doing this poem. But also, like, I think one of my strengths is just being completely myself and like just going in and being raw, and this is what I am and this is who I am. Just going to tell you everything, and like you figure out the rest. Because I think, like we were saying about the stage presence, I think that genuine feeling comes across. I really think that's a really important thing. Like, I've seen Luke write, and he's a really good poet, and he's a good writer. But I remember sitting there thinking, like, you're not being yourself. You're performing at the moment, but you're performing like a character. You're emphasizing bits of you, and like, I'm not getting like a vibe from you that where you're being exactly who you are. And that he takes stage shows on tour, so maybe that's how it has to work for him. But like, I love seeing a poet where I'm like, oh, you're just being you. And I've seen Joelle Taylor, and I think Joelle was, I mean, I've only seen her a couple of times. Maybe if I saw her more, I'd realize she does more of the same stuff. But she references things in the room, and like, you almost like have an inside joke with her with what's going on. Yeah. And then like, obviously the poetry is amazing. I think that like having that genuine feeling of being able to really connect with someone is so important. So that's something that I think I'm quite good at that already. But maybe people have to like talk to me afterwards and be like, oh, you're the same. But I just really want to be able to just get out there and just be me, be natural, and not have to force anything. Another thing, I saw Luke Wright and Joelle Taylor at like the same show in terms of where they were headline, but two different ones, and it's a slam afterwards. It's the kind of poetry championship. And Luke Wright went up, did his bit, sold his books in a break, and went. Joelle Taylor went up, did a bit, come back, sold her books, stood at the back of the room, watched all the poets, And when I went out to go to the toilet, she physically ran after me, grabbed me and said, I love that poem. Like there's the two levels of like genuineness and caring. I think you have to really like, people have to give a shit. And if you do give a shit, people can tell you give a shit. And it's like, that's an important thing. So I just want to be me. I want to work on my craft, be a better poet, be a better performer, but all in the aspect of being completely myself.
Yeah. And obviously you got to balance things, obviously things of like, not to make this podcast the shit on Luke White podcast thing, but like, obviously you can never know a level of like, poet got to literally has to run off because they're getting last train, etc. So you never know that stuff, but obviously as best as you can do, being in the room is great, and making time for the event as best as you can do is, again, very aware it's difficult to do all the time with cost of living crisis, cost of accommodation in some places, etc. But if you can, like, I have done a couple of gigs in Brighton, and Brighton is that one where it's close enough to London that I can come back the same night, but it's also not close enough to London. It's going to be an easy one, and I'll be back at like 1 a.m., 2 a.m., but it's also not worth staying overnight there because that's going to be way too much more expensive. But that thing of like, cool, I'm going to have to leave this room at exactly 10:30. I'm going to test it out and go exactly till 10:30 and push it as long as I can do. But like, I need to run off here. But whilst I'm here, I'm here.
Yeah.
I will be sweaty on the train back because I've ran back to the station, but I'll be here for it. And so like, I guess almost wrapping up this kind of section on features and all that kind of performing side of things, and like, I guess phrasing this properly, Tyrone, this is where phrasing always comes in fun. Looking obviously at the whole relationship between open micers and features, etc., you will get some features that, whether like a Joel Taylor, as much as Joel's a minimum level, like Joel's been around doing it for so long, etc., there feels like almost different hierarchy to a Joel, etc. kind of thing. How do you feel that kind of hierarchy plays into things on a day-to-day level, a level of like, obviously community and trying to work with each other, trying to be around each other, but obviously that thing of like, not to make it let's do wrestling, because I can do wrestling vibes here. The fun balance of this show's headlined by a mid-carder versus this show is headlined by a main eventer, etc. And the relationship between main eventers and mid-carders in the poetry scene.
Yeah, I think wrestling is probably a good example of that, because like, you get people that you've been seeing them wrestle for years and they're at a certain level, and then they want to make the jump from mid-card to main eventer, and sometimes that happens and you're just like, I'm not feeling it. I get that you've been around a long time and I know that you're good, but like, having you challenge for the title is a bit weird for me. And I think probably that does happen in poetry as well. I think there's a lot of people who you like go to an open mic and they're seeing you develop, but because they're seeing you develop, they're never going to see you as the headliner. And there are other places that you go where you've been developing at another open mic and they see you and they go, wow, come and do a headline for me. And I think there is some of that. Some people like pigeonhole you in where they see you. But there's also a lot of people like, I'm just going to book people who have a following because I want to get people through the door. This is about me like selling out the night, making some money. So I'm only going to book these certain people. And then there are other people who like, they're just like, things like there's a click and then we all just book each other and we're not really going to venture outside that. It'll be like someone, even if I book someone outside that, it's someone you recommended to me. And it's all a bit like, you've got to get on the inside to get in with them. So it's like, it's human nature, isn't it? It's politics. There's always going to be that. I think that all you can do in regards to that is just to keep improving, and people will see it. And sometimes you need somebody outside of your normal circle to see you for your real value, and then like book you as a headline, and other people will be like, oh, actually, yeah, no, they're really good. I would like to see a headline set from them. So I think it's really important to not get bogged down and only go to like a few nights. I think you have to keep things fresh, keep people seeing you, and like just getting your name out. Like I drive all over London and get all over the place just because like, one, I want to see as many poets as possible because I love poetry, and like it's cool seeing someone new that you've not seen before and they're brilliant. But in the same way of like making sure that I'm not just coming to say I love Process. Like Process is my favourite night. Not just saying that because I'm here. Like, but genuine from the first time I went there. But I can't only go to Process and be a poetry fan. That would just make me a Process fan. Like I have to get around and see different people at different nights. And I think it's an important thing to spread yourself as wide as you can. And I want to start getting out to stuff outside London. Obviously, I started outside London, came into London thinking like the London poetry scene, like that's where I want to be. But getting there and being like, oh, the level's not crazy. It's not like, just because it's London, it's not crazy big. Like I could bring poets from Kent down to headline. I will do when I start. I'm going to start a London night. I'm going to bring people from the Kent scene that are brilliant. And they're going to come to London and people are going to go, oh, wow, I've never seen you before. You're amazing. Like London is you've got some people who stand out, but generally it's the same as being outside London. So I want to like get up north. I want to go into the Midlands and go and see different folk shows. For one, to get my name out in those places as well, but also to see like the different talents and see different things. Because I think it's so important to not just get like in a routine of, oh, I just go to these ones.
When I have got my guest room situation sorted, and also when Process has figured out his new home, hopefully will by the time you listen to this, but we'll fucking see, a level of like, I want to be able to, like, part of my issue of trying to get poets from outside of London is always going to be travel and accommodation. That will always be the biggest hurdle and barrier to all of that stuff. And I want to get more poets down, but also with that, there's just the logistical thing as well of like, we can get 2 features on that Process a night. There's a lot more than 2 poets I want a lot of the time kind of thing. And like me and Kayla have for the most part booked most if not all of our features for this year already, and things of like, you'll then see a new poet and it's like, oh, but they're really good and I want to book them, but also don't know when we were very lucky in some respect that when Natalia was first here, we were able to get Natalia down for a Process and the thing of like, oh, you're really good. And again, going to my wrestling thing, a level of, you're really good enough that I want to strap the belt on you straight away and do the thing. And that thankfully was able to work. And given that her contract was running up kind of thing, etc. There's only so many people, like it's the wrestling thing of, you can only have one world champion at a time. Mm-hmm. I want to make so many people world champion. I want to give these people so many things, but I can't make you all world champion at the same time. I don't have the budget and the time and the space to do all that. And it's a wonderfully hard one to balance, and that thing of like, okay, you'll have to be next time or whatever, or a level of like almost you're so undeniable that you'll get it some other time. I don't need to be the person for that, or I want to get you before you become. Mm-hmm. It's such a weird one, and like with that as well, things of like, not that I don't want Process to book some of these bigger names, but also that thing of like, I like Process at times being this kind of smaller thing. Yes, we have booked a Jasmine Gardosi, who is a really well named, etc. Even Debris Stevenson at the last one at time of recording, a level of Debris has had shows on at the fucking Royal Court? Royal Court. Big shows on. Yeah. Kayla knows more of the theatre stuff than I do. Like, yeah,
Kayla's got a background in theatre.
Oh, jeez. I got killed like, one day. No, like, it's the thing of like, there was a joking world where like one day I'm going to call in a favour and go, hey, look, I've like this month's Process is going to be Joelle Taylor and Harry Baker. This is our features for this month kind of thing. And like, that will be brilliant and fun. I think it's a good thing to do every now and then. But at the same time, like with the May Process, the thing of like, our features are Fiona and Sumner, who are really good poets in their own right. Yeah. And they happen to have been regulars. And like we've got you and Hunter doing Process, the thing of like, we're booking quality. The base level thing is you are quality. That's what I want to book for. And then on top of that, the thing of like, yes, there'll always be some level of, are you a ratings draw? Will you bring, I'm going to bring all the fucking wrestling terminology in this. Be like, are you a ratings draw?
Are you over?
People because, are you over? Because I like need to like, pay for the venue, etc. So like, are you over? Are you going to bring people in, etc.? Yeah. Like I was thinking over this. My joke for myself is I think my goal with poetry, my level in poetry is I am going to be the greatest intercontinental champion. I'm not going to go for the world championship. I'm not doing that. And whilst there'll be clearly some people that will come out for poetry for me, if Harry Baker puts on the show, he will sell that out. Yeah. If I put on a show, not guaranteed. I am lucky that I've had my book launch do well, etc., stuff like that. But that is a lot of pushing and a lot of promoting and that thing of like, this is the one time I'm doing it, come down to this. Yeah. Harry Baker will do a tour and sell that out, etc. So a level of like, there are levels to this. I am not to that level, and I'm fine with that. I accept that. I am not that person you put on a poster that people will go, oh, I'm traveling to come see him, and that with that number of people in the same way Harry Baker or Joel or others get appeal for. And I think of like, when looking at features and booking features and all of that, some level of, they are nice to have. It's nice to be able to know that the scene is capable of having people like that. That is a potential aspiration. But at the same time, nights don't need them. So many, especially open mic nights, not that they don't bring people in, but calling it what it is, most people go to an open mic night for the open mic.
Yeah.
They go to perform themselves. It's an extra bonus to see some good features, but they're going for themselves.
Yeah.
So I do think there was a nice thing of like, don't have to book the headliners, or let's say the main eventers all the time. They're nice, it's great. If you have the money to, sometimes it's always nice, especially if you've got Arts Council funding, do that shit.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't even know what the tangent I was going on. I just went to go, that's just Tyra's rant now.
It's fine. I was thinking when you were saying like, oh, have a process where like Harry Baker and Joel Taylor are headliners. Have you ever thought about having like stand-up process shows that are not open mics?
Had been playing, so I've always wanted that idea, even back when I was doing Boomerang, etc., doing something like that. And like when we were figuring out what was going to happen with Boomerang after the pandemic, we were toying around the idea of like, rather than bring it back as a monthly open mic, do we bring it back as like a quarterly big event, etc.? Ultimately, with all that stuff, it just comes down to money and that thing of like, I would love to do that, but then, for example, like we pay our features at time of recording, we've got our budget up to we can pay features 60 quid each. And with that, the thing of like, cool, if I want to do that big show, am I getting 4 features, which then now means I'm paying £240, which then I need to make off the ticket sales, which is like, cool, you're stretching me here. And then obviously on top of that level of like, if I'm doing something like a Harry Baker and Joel Taylor, I'd want a bigger venue, which is going to cost me more, etc.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
And all of that. And again, this is the annoying, boring capitalism side of it, is the money adds up, etc. Like, I love the stuff that Bad Betty is doing and how like the level of feature that Jake is such doing, but I'll bring it to Bad Betty. But I know that they can do that because they've got Arts Council funding.
Yeah.
And it's not a shame. It's not a shameful thing. It's just level of like, in paying people what they deserve, which you really should be doing, you need to have that money in the first place. And that's what, like, I keep joking to myself, almost some level of either in honor of my mum or just as a Tyrone does it thing, a level of like, one day I'm just going to do a one-off all-star poetry event, almost, obviously not the exact same as the Royal Albert Hall one, but like, here's just Tyrone, just one day, here's all the money I have at this one event, there you go, I've put on a fucking stellar show.
Yeah.
But that feels like I can do it once and once alone.
Yeah, I was just thinking like the idea of just like to the new Harry Baker and Joel Taylor, and like obviously I'm not part of the process team, but in my head it's like we could do that. Like we could hire a small theatre. You raise ticket prices because it's a show, not an open mic. Like we could do that. We could sell that out, and that would be like a storming show. You get people from like process regulars to do like sort of the warm up, I guess, like 5-10 minute sets before them, make it a hell of a show. And like you could do that and smash it, but it would be hard to keep that going.
Well, yeah, I mean, you look at Outspoken, etc. That's the one that does it regularly. But again, that is a level of they've got the clout, funding, etc. to be able to on a regular. Again, no shade, just a level of this is the reality of it. You need to get that money behind it. Like Raise the Bar are working with. I don't know who Raise the Bar exactly are working with, but a level of they had to put in the money and time to get the money because they're doing an all-star show. Probably by the time of record. I don't know. Again, I don't know my schedule for this. I need to stop putting dates in this. I don't know my dates, and people don't listen to podcasts as they come out, Tyrone. Point is.
And also, like, you've got quite a lot on anyway.
Raise the Bar doing a show soon, which is going to be the all-star thing. And like they've booked Holly McNish and Vanessa Kasule and John Agard. They've got a really good show. That don't come cheap.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. I think, so it's the financialness in it. This is this is the thing with the headline stuff as well. And like, again, as we're finishing up on this thing, is the level of it's money.
Yeah, it's always money.
I want to book more poets out of London. It costs money, both their fees and then their travel, and then potentially accommodation. That adds up. Like, I am very thankful to anyone who books me. I'm very aware that, doing the Kent Poetry Slam, that one gig there paid me more than like 5 London gigs would, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Arts Council funding for you.
Yeah.
But yeah. I don't know what my point is. Just
Money.
on that lovely money note, we're going to end this section here and go to my somehow more chaotic section known as slow fire questions. As many people are vaguely aware, I have a thing called quickfire questions where I will ask poets as many questions as I can in 3 minutes. The fun of that works on social media, but for a podcast, as much as I could do that, I also want to kind of delve into some of these questions more. Like, it's fun hearing the answer, but sometimes no, but I want to know more about the answer.
Yeah.
And the slow fire questions is born. We will at random go through 5 of these questions and have a little discussion on it and talk about it. As I always have to preface this with, some of these questions are more serious than others, so some of these in-depth conversations may be more interesting than others. We'll see. But to do this, can you give me a random number in between 1 and 100, please?
57.
Cool. Then we are starting off with, what is the most money you've spent on clothes? See, starting with the hard-hitting stuff.
It's going to be trainers. I used to really collect a lot of trainers. I used to have over 100 pairs of trainers before I had responsibilities. But I've never gone like massive. I've probably spent 150 maybe, like, which is, I feel like it's a lot of money for trainers, but you can go crazier than that. So it's not like not a gigantic amount.
No, I've only recently been spending that amount on trainers, and even that level, it took me a while to get comfortable doing that. Like, I've been buying, like, it's only when I started buying the Jordans that I was like, oh, well, Jordans, okay, you're annoyingly out expensive.
Yeah, if you're getting Jordans, it's 100 minimum.
Yeah, and like, what I've almost, to make myself feel comfortable with it, the last few pairs of Jordans I have bought, and this is where Tyrone shows his age now, is I've been buying some Jordan Easy E's ons, which are Velcro Jordans. And I fucking love them. I can't be fucked with laces anymore. I have now outgrown shoelaces. I have now gone back to Velcro at my old age now. As level, like, no, we're Velcro now. Velcro for the foreseeable. This is better than shoelaces.
Yeah, and the good thing about shoes is, like, you can go back and get the ones that you loved when you were younger. Yeah. Because shoes are so big now, they're re-releasing them all. Oh,
for sure. And like, especially with Jordan, the level of, like, the whole point is their classic vibe, etc. Yeah, no, I was talking to, I can't remember who I was talking to about it, but like, I was talking to my friend Nicole yesterday about the idea of, like, especially when it comes to fashion and clothes, that balance between dressing the way I want to dress versus dressing the way that my budget allows. Are 2 different things.
Yeah, for sure.
And yeah, and I there's a little bit of, like, I'm in a better place financially, so I can actually dress the way I want to properly more so now. I'm not just going for I've got to buy these trousers because they're 20 quid versus, like, I can actually buy trousers like, yeah, these ones will actually last a little while, etc.
Yeah, I've noticed that in you recently. Like, you seem to be, like, becoming more yourself in terms of, like, the way you dress. And it's cool.
A level of, like, oh no, someone's giving me money, and oh no, Tyrone's going to spend it.
That's what it's there for. What's the point in doing all the work if you don't spend the money?
The problem is the money is, there's a finite amount of money. There will be a point you have to stop, Tyro.
Yeah, but if you built up a decent wardrobe in that time,
that's where we go.
So was it staple items you got to get?
Give me another number, please.
33.
33. Then we are going for, are you single?
I am single. Yeah. I don't know what else to say about.
Dating life, go.
Dating life. Yeah, no, I'm single. Not got anything going on at the moment of any depth. I was terrible at talking to people for such a long time. I didn't, like, until I was, to put this, gonna go out to the world. I was a virgin until I was 25 because I was just so cripplingly anxious. I didn't know how to talk to people. and like learning about anxiety at about that age, like realizing what it was and figuring out that's what I've been struggling with. And sort of working on it from then. It was like only since then have I ever been able to talk to people. But I think because I missed a bit growing up where like girlfriends, boyfriends, and being neurodivergent, I've got no idea if anyone's ever interested in me. So I just am just nice to people and just see what happens, because I can't read it and I'm too scared to get it wrong.
Well, like on a vaguely serious level on that as well, like things of like, obviously we talk so much about poetry, etc., and that kind of side of things, but like with that, balancing being father with doing poetry and being in this very late night world, how is that for you?
It's making me prioritize my time and choose how I spend it wisely. Like before kids, when you're single and I wasn't doing poetry either, it was just like, oh, like I can do things on a whim and stuff like that. But now, like I have my kids 50-50 with their mum. We have a really good relationship. We're really good friends. She's a brilliant person. I'm very lucky to have that with her. But it means that, like, unlike some parents, I do get half a week where I don't have them. But that's like compared to never having children's responsibility, it's not a lot of time. So anything that I want to fit into that time is I only have that half a week to do it. So poetry, if I want to make music, I want to draw, I want to create, I want to do anything, I want to play football, I want to go and see a film, I have to fit all this stuff in. So my time is incredibly precious, and I'm trying to make sure that I don't waste it on people, and make sure that the people who I do invest time in appreciate the fact that I am taking the time to do things with them. So yeah, it's a definite balancing act, and having kids and trying to pursue something is hard. But luckily I've got people around me who, when I need to, like, when it's like, I need to go and do this show, I'm supposed to like have the kids, my mum will have them there. I've got a really good relationship with the boy's mum, so like I'll look after them when she's got stuff, because she's a DJ and does different creative stuff. So like I'll have them for her when she needs it to, and she'll have them for me. And we're really lucky to have that relationship. So I'm in a fortunate position, but it does make time incredibly precious.
Fair. Give me another number, please.
88.
We are going with Batman or Superman?
Batman.
Why?
I never really got that into Superman. My favorite superhero is Spider-Man, but Batman was just a bigger part of my life. I think I remember watching the cartoons, loved the Dark Knight trilogy, like getting excited about the Batman films going out. Superman, I think Superman feels quite American to me, although Batman is obviously American, but it's like, I don't know, Superman feels like basically Captain America, and it's like I feel like there's a disconnect between me and Superman. Like, one of my best mates is he loves Superman, so it's definitely not.
I find Superman amusing because I feel like I definitely have appreciated him more as I've grown up versus when I was younger. Like when I was younger, he was almost too perfect. Again, I really wasn't fine with the perfect stuff growing up. Partly just how some of the media has changed, but like the more I hear about Superman stuff, it's more like some level of seeing the allegory of what Superman is, because like the fact that he was created by some two Jews and it was very much a Jesus metaphor in so many ways. Like, okay, now I can see that more now, and also level of like the more that they've done like the comic reboots and the film reboots thing of like, let's kind of not show him as this perfect person all the time. It's like, okay, now I can fuck with this person / that appreciation for the man with the powers of a god who can fuck everything over, who's almost choosing not to, kind of thing. It's like, okay.
Yeah, to bring it back to wrestling, I think I've always like, I grew up in the Attitude Era.
Yeah.
So I like cool heels.
Yeah.
Like cool heels are where I'm at. And still to this day, like when you've got a cool heel, I'm all over it. I don't like the white meat baby faces.
Yeah.
To get very wrestling terms.
I mean, it's the whole, the thing with Batman, which will always get me, is like, again, I really like Batman. I love watching even the animated Batman films, but all that kind of stuff. There'll always be that part of my head that's like, no, but you're a billionaire, you can fix things differently.
Yeah.
Well, like there is very much a different way that you are literally able to do.
Yeah, I don't think I think about Batman in those terms. When I think about Batman, it's from a very childish place. As an adult now, thinking about that, I'm like, yeah, you're really wasting your time.
I mean, I love a fucking
like, much bigger ways.
I'm here for the ninja. I'm here for the fact that he is a regular human who is just fucking around with all these superheroes. Like, fine with that, but also like, no, but you keep complaining about how bad it is in Gotham. It's like you can change the infrastructure.
Yeah,
really
you could
easily.
invest. You could invest in like the working class kids and help them out and give them opportunities.
Give me another number, please.
12.
Cool. Penultimate question. What is your go-to karaoke song?
So I haven't done karaoke for a long time. I was in a karaoke bar the other night after I went to Big Trouble to watch Annalise Broughton and Carmina Massalova. And we ended up in this pub across the road, which is simultaneously like so fucking rough, but it's a gay pub. It's like, it's like working into the roughest working class pub, but everyone in there is accepted and no one is going to judge you in any way. And it's amazing. But they have karaoke night and I didn't have the bottle to do it that night. But if I was going to get up and do it, I was going to do You're So Vain, which is a great song. And I feel like we got done very well at karaoke.
Fair play. And now coming on to our last question. Give me one more number, please.
100.
Cool. On a scale of 1 to 10, how cool are you?
5. I like that I'm myself completely. I've stopped trying to be what other people want me to be or to worry about what other people want me to be. And I think that that's a very cool thing. But I also am an anxious wreck all of the time. I am a nerd who really likes details of things I'm into. I wear vintage wrestling shirts, as M pointed out. I don't know. I think if I met me, I would like me, but I don't think that necessarily makes me cool.
No, fair. Well, obviously there's a difference between being cool. I mean, who the hell is describing what cool is? But yes, that balance between, I think, I'm looking around my house, I'm looking at the fucking anime statues I've got off camera, etc. I'm really cool to 10-year-old Tyrone. 10-year-old Tyrone fucking is so happy at where we've come, etc.
Yeah.
But like other 10-year-olds, etc. nowadays do not think I'm cool in that kind of...
Yeah. I've never been the person who like people are there to see. Like, oh, Jake's going, I'll go. Like that's not me. I've always been outskirts. But I think that I think little Jake would look at me now and think like, oh, you're pretty cool. Like you do stuff that you like to do. You actually talk to girls and occasionally boys. And just like, yeah, I think little me would appreciate who I am. And I think I appreciate myself because of that. But in terms of like what the world thinks is cool, I don't think I'm that.
Yeah, like I know for me, I'm a lot more sociable than I give myself credit for. In as much as, whilst as is evident by so many people will tell me, I will take the while to make it warm up to a lot of people, etc. But at the same time,
Yeah, I thought you hated me.
oh, everyone does. But like at that same time, that if you put me in a person's New Year's party, birthday party, whatever, with all their friends who I only know 2 people in the room kind of thing, I will make it through the night and I will befriend some people there, etc. I might not keep in touch with them afterwards because I'm bad at that side of things, but like I've got enough about me socially that I can network or whatever, and like I can get through a night and I don't often, I'd like to think, come across as, oh, he was annoying or a bit too much. And I'm like, oh, he was fine, he's cool enough kind of thing. And like I can get through that side of things. In terms of being the cool person people want to hang out with, I think at most, especially looking at the poetry scene, I have built that up for me by not interacting with many people. That's like, but everyone likes him kind of thing, but I don't know him yet. So he seems like that enigma thing. And it's like, when you get to him, it's like, oh, it's not that. Like, my favorite thing was when I was at uni, I kind of had that same appeal where like I had a group of people like, oh, we don't know this kid, and his kid like seems like this cool Londoner, etc. And then the moment it's like talking, it's like, oh, he's him. Okay, fair enough, kind of thing. And like, not in a bad way, but the thing of like, oh, he's the campest man I've ever met, kind of thing. Like, I walk, especially going uni, I walked around in hoodies all the time, etc. And like being that black London boy growing up, the stereotypes kind of wrote themselves, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then it's like the moment someone actually started talking to me, it's like, oh, he's none of that. in the slightest way.
I think that's what is cool about you though, because like I don't think there's a single stereotype that you could apply to you, really.
Like the thing, like there are stereotypes that apply that also are completely wrong. Like every single metric said I should be gay. So that stereotype should fit, and yet it doesn't, kind of thing. Like I think I fit a lot of stereotypes for the wrong reasons, kind of thing.
Yeah, there are different stereotypes that you, but like a black boy from London is not one of them.
Yeah, it's that kind of I think
gay man, all of them. Yeah, except one.
Yeah, exactly. Except the main one. Oh, there's a fucking John Mulaney joke about that. But like, that is I think that's a lot of my vibe. And like, but also like you were saying, a level of like I've been there for a while now, and I will thank my mum for a lot of it. Like, I don't give a shit what people think. I don't care. I will be that person. Like, I've got my anime. I've been reading my anime for God knows how long. I don't give a shit if anime is cool or not. I never cared if comics were cool or not. I read the things I liked to. I go into my Western. Again, I've never gone to like a Western show and gone like, do I want to post this on my story? Am I gonna like ruin my chances with people or look less cool? I don't give a shit. I'm going to this stuff and I'm enjoying it and having a good time.
I think that's the coolest way to be. If you can just be yourself, that's the thing to be. Like I know what I like, and I enjoy those things, so I'm going to do it. I'm a 36-year-old man who loves wrestling, so like I'm going to enjoy wrestling. Like I love rap music, which like at points in time has been cool, but I love it to a nerdy level where I'm like where you talk to casual fans and they're like, you're boring me.
But it's also that thing as well of like it's that idea where it's like I contain multitudes kind of thing of like, whilst I've got all the nerdy rap shit, all the nerdy shit, etc., all the anime shit, etc., I can talk to you about football for hours, etc. Whilst I can talk to you about I can talk to you about wrestling for hours, etc. I can talk about media camera shit. I can do films, etc. Like, I've got enough different hobbies I'm into that some of them are the nerdy, geeky stuff, some of them are the more popular, modern day things that people are into, etc. I admittedly don't keep up with all the modern pop music, but again, like I went to go see Pink the other week, etc. Like like in the same month I went to go within a month's time I went to go see Pink. I went to see Nickelback. I've got my multitudes and things that I can...
And you're happy to admit that on a podcast, which is lovely.
Yeah.
I went to watch Nickelback.
I fully said, like, I kept on making a whole big deal out of the fact that like I'm not going to goddamn Poetry Jam that month because I'm watching Nickelback.
That's the only time I've been as well. It was like my first time, and I said to someone, and they were like, Tyron's not going to be there. I was like, Tyron's always there.
No.
Like, no, he's going to watch Nickelback. Oh, for fuck's sake, Tyron.
They clashed, and it's like, no, I'm doing the thing for myself. I'm seeing Nickelback in here. I had a great time. And
that's why you should enjoy. Like, it doesn't matter what other people think. Just do the stuff you like. I can't do small talk. I'm terrible at just like the way that some people meet and they can just have a conversation. I can't do that. You need to like interest me in some way to be able for me to like, because otherwise a conversation would literally run out. I'm talking to people and literally I just run out of things to say and I just stare at them and it's like, we're just going to sit here until you walk away from me.
It's why I struggle a tiny bit with like work friends, and that like part of it, I think, level I've got so many connections outside of work that like, and it's going to a whole different topic, but just finishing off my thought process and finishing off the podcast. There you go. A level of, I'm very aware that with looking at the work friend thing, it's not that I dislike people at work, but I look at so many people that I've got friends at work that are properly really good friends that they will travel with. And I think the more I analyse it, because I have to analyse a friendship, is a lot of their friendships feel and get that vibe of you've all moved to London, therefore you don't have your other connections here. And a level of, therefore, the time you're spending at work is a lot of your meeting people time, etc., as is with everyone, but a level of you don't have all people to go back to that your normal people are, etc., or who you grew up with, etc., so you latch onto the work friends more so. I understand that and I get that. And I've kind of been going from that place of like, well, I've been London born and raised. I'm still around all the people that I've got my people, and I've got also my intense hobbies like poetry, etc. And a lot of people don't have a like for like. Not they don't have hobbies, but the level of intensity that poetry is as a community-based thing.
I think that's probably the thing for us, because like at work, I had work friends, but things like networking, which like you get told it's so important, like you've got to make connections. I was terrible at it at work. And I just thought, it's because I can't talk to people. Like I'm really bad at that. But I'm brilliant at networking and poetry because I'm like, I see someone and I'm like, you need to know you because you two are going to love each other and I want to make that connection. And I really enjoy doing that. So I think that it's like some people have work as their life and some people go to work so they can live their life. And I think we're very much there. Like, I know that you enjoy your work and like, but you're in terms of like your life is outside of work. Like, work is not your life, even though you make your hobbies work. As
And
well.
like, and it's obviously not that thing. It's not that like, if anyone I get close to someone at work, I go like, no, we can't be friends. Nothing like that. Just the level of like, I've got so many other things going on that I'm not necessarily looking to fit in work people into my life, etc. I'm comfortable in where I am, and again, if with that level, that also gives a bit of the aloof, mysterious vibe, and that Tyrone never does the things, etc. And like, thankfully I'm aware of that, and I think no one has an issue with that. I'd like to say no one has an issue with that. We'll fucking find out soon. But like it's all just level of like, I'm comfortable in the way I live my life. I don't need to force anything else. I don't even know what my point was anymore. I've lost my track of my points, but what I have not lost track of, hopefully, it's a podcast because we're now at the end of it. There we go. Got there in the end. We brought it back.
We made it.
But yes, thank you for joining me on this podcast. You have been a wonderful guest.
Thank you for having me.
You have a camera there. If you want to be found online, let people know where to find you.
I'm mostly just on Instagram. Jake Nathan Creates on Instagram. That's where you find out everything that I'm doing, everything that's going on. I don't know. I had a Facebook page, but I'm not even going to talk about it. I don't use it anymore.
I've pretty much only got my Facebook for my family at this stage. To be fair, which is nice to have, but like that is pretty much all. No, I lie. My Facebook page is mainly for my family and people outside of London, I've realised.
Yeah.
But yes, I am Tyrone Lewis. If you've been watching this podcast, listening to this podcast, you know where to find Process stuff. There's more links in the bio. There's a link tree somewhere, etc. I should put graphics up at some point, but that's like extra work, so I'm not going to.
Can I just say one thing?
Go for it.
Emma Hunter dresses like a teenage boy.
There is my social pull-out clip for this episode. But nevertheless, this is the Process podcast. I don't know. I never end it like that. I don't rename the podcast again. The way I do end it is the same way I end my poetry nights, by quoting my famous Irish philosopher, aka Joel Alderton, who's just a wonderful person and poet. But nevertheless, as we come to the end of this podcast, I love you all. Now fuck off. Bye, everyone.